はい、すいません。じゃあちょっと早いんですけど、皆さんお揃いなので DAO のセッションをちょっと始めていきたいと思います。本日、モデレーターにクリプトタイムズ編集長の新井さん、スピーカーが誠さん、ENS の誠さん、ポリゴンの、キャサリンさん、マスクの、スジ、あと、急遽ですね、アーベの CEO の方が一緒に登壇してくれるということで、よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
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 では早速セッションの方お願いします。
はい、よろしくお願いします。Hi everyone, I'm Shingo. Everyone calls me Arada. Today I'm glad to discuss with you about some themes of DAO. Yes, so today's the theme of the DAO, which is attracting some great attention worldwide, of course, in Japan. There are many types of DAO, such as collective investments, community, and protocol. Today, I would like to hear your thoughts on DAO. At first, please introduce yourself and briefly describe your relation in the blockchain and cryptocurrency. First person is, please introduce yourself, Makoto-san.
Oh, sorry, do I start first or should Kathleen start first?
Makoto-san, please, you are introduced first.
Hi, everyone. I'm Makoto from ENS, Ethereum Name Service. So I'll just quickly introduce about the services that it's basically the name service. So in my social profile, I actually have a name called Matoken.is, even though Japanese people call it Matoken, which I just only realized recently. But like, so if you look up Matoken.is, it's just resolved to Ethereum address, which is usually hexadecimal, hard to read. And also, so that's for the payment purpose usually, but we recently discovered that actually we are the Web3 username, so that many NFT artists or DeFi, if you log in, actually your ENS name comes as your identity. So that's what our company does. And as some of you may know, we've been doing since project launch 2017. It turned into the company in 2018, and I joined the company 2018 as a developer, like all-round developer from Solidity, front-end, back-end, and to writing SQL. But we recently turned into the DAO by issuing like an ENS token. So that was just last November. So we still have a fresh memory about how we kind of decided to make a DAO and doing the kind of launch. So I'd like to share some of the experience today. That's it.
Thank you very much. I recently got my ENS, and I think it's a very unique Web3 service. Thank you very much, Makoto-san. Next is Kathleen from Polygon. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Kathleen. Yasashi DeFi no minasan, konnichiwa. Hi. So I'm head of communications at Polygon. We're a de facto Web3 platform for builders. At Polygon, we have set up the Polygon ecosystem DAO, and the DAO is looking to progressively decentralize the activities of the Polygon team and also allow the ecosystem to build on Polygon to take care of itself in a transparent and decentralized way. And I was with Maker Foundation before and tried launching my teams twice, but failed twice to get a proposal passed through the Maker governance. So today, definitely, I would love to share my experience and what I know about DAO with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Stein-san from Aave. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Stani Kulachov. I am the CEO and founder of Aave. So Aave protocol is a DeFi protocol, so decentralized finance protocol running on Ethereum, Polygon, and Avalanche network. So it's a cross-chain protocol where users can deposit cryptographic assets to earn more interest. And I would say that Aave is interesting as a protocol because it's governed by the community, the Aave token holders. So it's essentially governed by the DAO. And the Aave protocol has been self-sustainable, meaning that it generates yield from the protocol itself into the DAO. So the DAO is self-sustainable and has its own treasury, which makes it very interesting. And now we have seen different kinds of ideas for sub-DAOs in the Aave ecosystem as well, which I want to talk about today. I'm super excited to be here. And I also have a ENS name, and I'm very excited.
Thank you very much. Andreas, here's Sujiyan from MaskNetwork, the CEO and organizer of this conference. Sujiyan, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, 日本の皆さん、こんにちは. And very, very glad to host and join this conference. So MaskNetwork is the Web3 social protocol. We are trying to bridge the Web2 and Web3. So Web2, we're referring to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, while Web3 is everyone here. And the problem today is how can we use the Web3 magic on top of the Web2, such as Twitter or Instagram, right? So Mask is founded in late 2017, and we've been working the past few years and form partnership including MakerDAO, Uni, and we can do amazing things on Twitter, such as send red pockets, send money to Twitter friends, tipping on Twitter, trading, synthetic stock, or trading on Uniswap on Twitter or Instagram, buy NFT directly, and we've been providing a lot of grant and investment and funding bounty to decentralized social network, or another terminology we recently invented called SocialFi. We invented this terminology in last, I think, September. 6 months ago, we invented this terminology, coined this terminology, and bring more power from the traditional Web2 to the Web3. And it's my pleasure to host this conference, and thanks for everyone to join here. Mask is also a DAO, so our treasury is now governed by the voting from the community, and we haven't done a lot of treasury usage, but we've donated a lot to Gitcoin to facilitate the developer, and we plan to do more interesting stuff based on the community opinion. And eventually, I think the social protocol, decentralized social network, SocialFi, no matter what name, but social protocol gonna evolve and become the next big thing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Now that we've introduced ourselves, we'd like to start this session on DAOs. Yes, at first time is DAO is getting a lot of attention at the moment. But what is your definition of a DAO? For example, there are many cases of individual minting tokens or NFT for community buildings. Does this also include DAOs? Does anyone have any comments of this? What do you think, Kathleen?
So I guess the DAO is a community, a group of people sharing the same mission and goals, and where they can participate in different ways and contributing to the overall mission. So that's kind of how I see DAO is.
In my case, I have a couple definitions. And the first one is what's the broadest definition of DAO is I kind of see DAO as one of the tools that I think someone like said that like if you have Discord and the non-smart sig, that can be a DAO. And what's the difference between just normal community is that you actually have assets to share with the community itself. So as long as there's some sort of financial value to manage together, that can be DAO. That's the broadest one. Then also the definition of why ENS doing DAO is that we actually charge registration fee $5 a year. Was that intention is to prevent people from like squatting entire names, but as a not side effect, but we are getting sustainable revenue, and it gets to the point that like we actually started as a kind of non-profit generous grants from Ethereum Foundation, so we've never had like VCs, but we decided to give back. I think we gave almost like $700,000 to Gitcoin, so like we kind of pay forward for the generosity we received. But now we are getting even more revenue to the point like it's beyond just our small team's capability to just deciding how to distribute this kind of revenue. So that's another reason of like how do we distribute the revenue? That's another way of using DAO. And the last bit is about our governance was being historically done by like 7 multisigs, and we wanted to distribute that governance process a bit more. So that's kind of definition of DAO which we use at ENS.
Great. Yeah, I may add something like people haven't mentioned in before. So I think like DAO is very like, it's a digital version, it's a cyber version of labor union or cooperative, right? So we have a way to form an organization to work on some common goal, and there might be a profit or maybe some like a economy driven behind that. And the ownership structure compared to a company is more like a digital cyber version of a union or labor cooperative, which is not really new. It's been around for 200 years. But the difference is, in my opinion, DAO is really inclusive. You can just be anyone. You can be even an AI to join the DAO. You can be a man hiding behind an address. That's my version of DAO. And eventually, I think everything's going to become a DAO just because like that's the very inclusive way to form organization. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, DAOs are pretty much a way for, well, it's first of all, it's a very kind of like an efficient way for internet friends to organize and come together and then make decisions on topics that are pretty much like interested to them or the DAO kind of like serves. And I think what makes DAOs very interesting, especially, is that there's this voting mechanism that is happening on chain, on the blockchain, meaning that it adds a lot of transparency on, for example, how the DAO members are voting. DAOs might be big or small. I mean, Aave DAO, it has a couple of 100,000 participants, but actually who are active is a smaller number in terms of thousands or a few hundreds or a few dozens, depending on what kind of decision making there is. But DAO can be just a smaller organization for 5 to even 10 people, where you pretty much want to decide on even like a fund allocations or something else. So there is always two things for in DAOs: getting organized and having some sort of common initiative. And it's very efficient because everything can happen on chain, and the participants of the DAO can be any part of the world. So that's kind of very fascinating.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Let's open about the definition of DAO, such as on-chain, multi-persons, money management and voting and etc. Next question. How is the DAO changes our lives in the futures? For examples, is it possible to make a full commitment and live on DAOs? Yes, I think maybe many of the Japanese people want to know about these questions. How about Suji-san?
Yeah. I think like people are already being changed a lot by DAO, right? So as mentioned, the mass DAO itself is still in early days. It's less than 1 year, 10 months actually. But we've been donating a lot to Gitcoin, from GR4, GR5, 6, now it's GR11 something, right? I believe like Avi is also one of the donor, and we've been granting from the DAO and goes to the Gitcoin DAO, and Gitcoin have a lot of bounty hacker, freelancer programmer, and they work on Mask because we are the bridge between Web2 and Web3. So if you want to have a decentralized social idea, you're definitely going to check Mask and you do something and you earn bounty from Gitcoin, and you earn a quantitative voting match from the Gitcoin pool. It's actually your job, right? It's your even your dividends from become a Gitcoin member. And one thing I remember is we even have people from Iran, which traditionally, if I remember correctly, traditionally that are on the sanction list of the United States, and there's even company like GitHub used to ban Iran programmers GitHub account, and then they are free to program on Gitcoin and become a DAO member instead of an employee of Microsoft, right? And I think ENS is another great story. One of our friend, one of our investors, intern is the most powerful group of people in the industry right now. So one intern is my personal friend, and one day he just say, "Hey, I have $2 million ENS air job because I did a lot of bounty, and I translate the language, the translation in Mandarin. I think he also translated Korean one, maybe and he got different account, and so he owns 3 identity in the ENS forum, and at the day of airdrop, he owned like more than $1 million job. That's better than you join a company and wait for the IPO, right? And for Mask, we did a huge airdrop back in the day, 2021. We did a huge airdrop. It's around $30 million. It's also quite I'd say amazing for people we never know, but they become our user for days and for years, right? One day you say, hey, original shareholder, we cap, and the company IPO, you have the token now. In the longer term, because these example are these elites, relatively elites, right? And they have to learn the programming skill or translation or be very smart. But longer, if we think about the future in 5 years, in 10 years, I think like even there will be like people like Uber DAO, right? People form DAO like in different cities, try to be another version of the Uber with the cooperative elements, right? There'll be a lot of things. It's going to definitely change the world, right? And it's already happening, especially from the place that people are bankless or being sanctioned away from the mainstream corporation world. That's something we're trying to help right now. And the next step maybe is more mainstream and more general public. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. How about Kathleen?
So I think, some of the points have been, mentioned by other speakers already. It's just really like for the first time, like collaboration, coordination, as a group is nothing new, but to really collaborate on a global scale is the first. and really just building a team with different members located in different location is something that's really, really interesting and exciting and refreshing. So for example, the team, the core unit that failed twice that I built last year, we have members from Ghana, and we also have members from Colombia and Italy, and it's just very exciting to be able to work with people from different places on this planet, and it's given that we have a lot of hope about DAO, and I think many people has this well, at least for myself, I had a misperception of wow, DAO is going to solve a lot of problem going forward. It's just gonna be really great. And well, it definitely has its disadvantage and things that are not going as smoothly. So I based on my experience from last year, I just realized that DAO is really still in its very early stage. But when a proper structure is developed, it can definitely affect how we work and how we see ourselves in our place in this, global village. We have witnessed basically the digital transformation of information, of information sharing with Web2 and exchange of value with cryptocurrency and digital money. Now, as a key component of Web3, DAO allows us to take a step further to collaborate freely on a global scale, and with the right incentives, diversity, inclusion, this DAO will continue to evolve going forward, I think.
I think one thing I want to add is it's definitely, like DAO changes some people's lives, and that there are already people who's working full time on DAOs. One thing people have to be aware that it's quite volatile market in crypto itself, and also their DAO lives. That quite often many DAOs they often rely their revenue kind of social budget on their own governance token, and depending on that, especially now, like we are kind of in a bear market, so like depending on your token price, that fluctuates the DAO's budget as well. So you can't, if you are expecting just like normal, I think especially in Japan, like all my friends and their family members still live in the same company for like 20, 30 years, and they kind of expect kind of stable salary. DAO is not at the state for that kind of like job security. So it would be great if you are doing as a kind of side of your main job, and then it's a great way. Or if you have certain skills, you could actually join multiple DAOs offering the same service skill for different ones. And if you have to kind of diversify yourself and make sure that to take into account that DAO life is relatively volatile. But if you are aware of that risk, I think that's a great way, one of the ways to live a life using DAO.
Thank you very much. How about do you think, Sai-san?
Yeah, I think like looking at kind of like past and how DAOs been forming, like the great part about DAOs is that they can be formed relatively quickly, so people can come together fairly quickly, create a DAO, and basically govern what they want to go. Sometimes it's a complex technology, like DeFi protocol. It might be also something more simple, for example, which NFT they could buy as a group of a community. The challenges, of course, with DAOs is then I would say like what happens when there will be some sort of like an issues in the DAO. For example, if 5 people come together and decide to contribute, and maybe one person doesn't want to contribute, and like how do you handle those kind of like challenges? And like especially when you create a DAO let's say to build a product or something similar. So I would say kind of like there's so many new issues, and then of course there's another issues with DAOs is also the fact that, let's say, a DAO isn't a legal entity necessarily in traditional sense. So how do you how can a DAO subscribe to different agreements, pay maybe bills, and in traditional sense? So like as a concept, it's very new for the rest of the world, and like my kind of thinking is like how DAOs will actually expand into the more realm of like traditional life. I would imagine that at some point, when we have this kind of like, the stickers like Bitcoin accepted here, when you go to some shops and there's some like early adopters that accept Bitcoin or some crypto. I think at some point we will have stickers where we'll see like DAOs accepted here, that you can actually be a customer as a DAO to traditional services. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
So just a quick question. You said DAO has no legal entity. Does Aave DAO have no legal entity?
No.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so pretty much like different companies are providing services to the Aave DAO. So for example, Gauntlet changes risk parameters. They put the fee into the proposal. Let's say Sartora wants to audit or formally verify contracts. They charge the DAO, but then the service providers are the legal entities.
So is it almost like an LLC model that any legal obligation just pass through to the service provider within a DAO?
Yeah, so the DAO itself is pretty much smart contract based system, and then whoever wants to build something, maybe for example, if ENS is doing big integration and for example as a DAO, and they can charge, okay, we could charge this amount of funds from the Aave DAO because we put effort in this integration. They can do that, or it can be also like a even normal legal entity saying we want to provide these services to the DAO. So it's kind of like all these service providers are managing most of the kind of like operations.
Interesting, because the reason I mentioned is that when we tie into DAO, even now, our development company is in Singapore, and we were the kind of beneficiary of the revenue stream. So we had to pay tax. As part of the DAO, we move to Cayman, which has no kind of tax obligation for the capital gain and the income. So now we don't have to, but during the transition, we had I think 3 weeks to 1 month period when during that time registration fee got skyrocketed. So we have an additional couple million of legal obligation our company has to pay. So we just made a DAO proposal to cover that kind of stuff. So I just, curious, interesting that like how, that especially for the tax obligation stuff, like, how each DAO handles.
Yeah, I guess like when like the tax kind of like a question comes when, the DAO collects this kind of like a pile of funds, and because it doesn't have any legal entity, it doesn't have any owners, what happens then is that when the service providers are building the DAO, essentially they're the income and taxable events will happen. But it's so difficult because it's very early in the sense like what is a DAO and whether it's kind of like a partnership or whether it's just something else or new, or it's very tricky for us even. And now the DAO has been for like a few years now, so it's kind of like unclear for us too.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. This is last tape. How should we avoid DAO failures I think maybe the DAO's keys to the success of it is sustainable, and it is important community works from the bottom up to archive the same goal, and that the flow of funds remains transparency. But I think maybe there are also failure and negative problems such as issues, the voting rates, the weight of the votes. What are your thoughts on these problems, and how should we avoid and solve these problems? How about Kathleen? Maybe you make a DAO's experience. How about on this theme? What do you think about this?
Yeah, well, I think failures is for sure. There will be things that don't go well, and it's best not to avoid them. Just fail and just reiterate. I think that's the best way a DAO can learn from its experience, right? So regarding to voting, I think regarding to the maker community, I think there are the MakerDAO community is still reiterating, trying to improve itself as it involves, encounter many different, incidents. And I think it's from, it's starting from well incentivized plan and realizing some of the things that don't work and just reiterating and trying to change it and then trying to make it right. I think that's going to happen for every DAO. I just don't think everyone can get it right the first time. And regarding to having too much weight or voting power or not voting, I think at least for MakerDAO is they're trying to navigate that through delegate voting. So we do have, so the MakerDAO has a system of people voting on behalf of others. And this is one big improvement I see from the beginning to now. When I first submitted a proposal for the, last year, there weren't many people voting. And so that's definitely something that has improved. And another thing about having too much vote for one person, it's really it's a myth that people believe to be true, but it's not. Say, for example, if you look at makers, the breakdown of people holding makers, actually people with smaller votes, they have the ability to change the direction. It's just that people, how do you deal with voter empathy? Especially given the gas fees being high, how do you deal with that, right? So going forward, I imagine, I can envision a future where voting take place in another layer or something like that, because otherwise, just voting itself is gonna cost like $500, $1,000. It's not something that a regular person would want to spend money on. So, in case of Polygon, gas fee is low. So that's, Polygon is trying to solve the problem of, scaling Ethereum. So this is something that, we probably need to think about when it comes to online governance. And with the right incentive and diversity and inclusion, I think going forward, DAO will evolve on its own. And I think you will probably see a lot of changes and reiteration over and over, which is a great thing.
I think one thing I want to probably comment on is like when we talk about voting, one big question is about like VC or capitalism, right? It's like you got more money and you bought a lot of like Mask or ENS, and then you do evil thing, you control the protocol, right? And delegate definitely help that problem, but we all understand that you can move around your token with different pseudo ENS and pretend you're different people. So One thing I'm working on, and mainly it's the job of the Radical Exchange Foundation, from the book Radical Market, is the quantitative voting, right? QV or QF, crowdfunding, that is also used by Gitcoin, even though it's very early. But basically, the story is not because we are founder, we are rich, so we have more voting power. Not because you are a large fund, so you have more voting power. It's the voting power will dilute over the weight. Say if you have like 100 masks, you can only vote using 10 masks based on the quantitative voting, quantitative rules. This is very early, and personally, I'm a mentor at the Radical Exchange Foundation. And then the next huge problem when we propose this to other DAO, including our DAO, is like, okay, it's gonna just be another 10 fake identity to vote on behalf of one person, right? So that requires a lot of like proof of humanity. Again, this is very, very early. What Mask can do is, because Mask connect the social network with you, can see the social graph. We might able to help that like we see a group of friends try to manipulate the DAO voting, which is happening already. But we can just maybe alert very early. But it's very, very interesting topic. I think eventually we all need to think twice or have a lot of think a lot of this carefully. Otherwise, it will likely ruin the current DAO environment. It's very democratic, very, very friendly, and it's turning relatively unfriendly. I can tell gradually last year, and I don't know. Like, what's the ENS and Avi opinion on this? Yeah.
I'll delegate my answer to Stanley because I think our time is almost getting close to the end. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't hear properly. What was the question?
Oh, how you guys want to deal with the cap VC jump in, take a lot of control over DAO profit? Yeah.
I think actually the best way to combat that is just to having with DAOs itself. So nothing stops a group of people forming a DAO, and also kind of like buying governance power or borrowing governance power. So I would say, like, I kind of would like to see a movement where, when there's like, if there's VCs in the space, you could also have a group of people coming together, forming a DAO, just for the fact that they want to acquire some amount of voting power so that they can actually bring more like community engagement and decision making. But also, like, I never seen the VC thing as a problem, because essentially the difference between like traditional businesses and economies is that all of these protocols are forkable, meaning that even if you are the biggest holder in the ecosystem, you still will need to have such a wide consensus when you do decisions, and you need to hear the minority, because there's always risk that the minority pretty much creates their own new community, and it's so easy to spin out. So essentially you want to keep it together, and that kind of a thing has kept probably everyone in the community aligned on what to do, and kind of like reduce the amount of politics where they could actually be. I think that kind of a risk ensures that these DAOs will always have a wide consensus.
And let me just, do we still have time? What? One thing to add is, I think VC often get criticized in the world of Web3, but in this scenario, I think they get criticized because they get early on in a very cheap valuation, and they dump to the retail at the time of the token launch. So if that's the source of the evilness, all these evil VCs already kind of exited from the community itself. So I would argue that like maybe remaining VC are actually value aligned. So I don't think we have to see as a like a vicious entity just because they are VCs. And also I think A60Z are often the top delegate token holders in many DeFi projects. But I saw that they published some sort of templates to kind of welcome more delegates from like, academics and all the other places. So I think they themselves are trying to, at the end of the day, they want to maximize the value in the long term because they still haven't sold it yet. So I don't think having VC itself is on its own is evil thing. Even though ENS, we didn't give anyone to VC to, on the closed deal. So the VCs, they are in ENS right now. They just bought in the market just like everybody else.
Yeah, like Polygon is a community built, platform. So, Polygon hasn't really, taken any VC money to start its own. So, but with VC, VC obviously, with the, investment, they are getting the rewards for the risk they're taking. So it's a very fundamental finance concept, right? So there is, obviously when there's someone making money, you want to have a, place to point your finger to, but the whole thing about the VC, being, controlling Web3, it's kind of narrative is, it's pretty ridiculous in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for a lot of discussions. So, yes, we are almost out of time. So this concludes the session on DAOs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, participants and viewers. Thank you very much.